we've spoken about quite a few different lifestyles you can pursue, man. And I think what I've realized from this conversation is there's actually like a lot, and there's not we're not even covering all of them, you know. But I think it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to talk about like the ones. I think these are the ones that are quite popular that we've spoken about so far, especially in the world around us. Like you'll see it in like we spoke about. Andrew Tate is someone who's like very well, just his type of lifestyle and what he promotes is definitely something that's spoken about a lot. Um, but I'm keen to get into a few more that are maybe a little bit more local in that like these are kind of lifestyles that I see around me and that people often actually end up leading.
Mm.
So one that I wouldn't mind hopping into, bro, is you and I as young men of God, followers of Christ,
Yes. Yes, sir.
being involved in church ourselves, man. And I'm sure there's
Yeah.
people watching, who there's a lot of people who maybe if you only attended church a few times, or maybe you're quite involved in your church, but there's definitely a lifestyle that you can pursue where you completely like focus on God, you know. And I see this with quite a lot of
Yeah.
young men that they do end up pursuing, where perhaps this looks like going to Bible school and completely leading your life like focused around the pursuit of God. And on paper, there's not much better things that you could pursue, but we'll talk about what
Mm-mm.
that kind of lifestyle really looks like here, man. So I've seen this with quite a few guys, being quite involved in the church myself. Um,
Yeah.
see guys who are, they get recruited into working in the church, then they do an internship for a year, and then they end up like staying there for many, many years, because they just get
Yeah,
so
just totally
involved.
staying to church.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
don't
just
end
totally
up
like
yeah, they don't end up seeing much more. So
mm,
there's I've seen that with quite a few of my friends. What happened with me is I've been involved at the youth that I go to for so long. I was a part of the youth my whole high school career, and then I've been a youth leader at the youth on a Friday night for the last like 3.5 years, and that's been
mhm,
amazing. But what I see is that quite a lot of the guys that were leading me, they either are busy with a course in terms of studying
mhm.
some sort of Bible study. And then the lifestyle also looks like usually they want to, it's either you are like completely focused on God or they want to find like a woman that they can settle down with quite young. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's the sort of, that's what the Bible promotes. And the Bible is very like pro marriage and that kind of
Yes.
stuff. So
Mm.
I think what comes along with that lifestyle as well is like getting married young, maybe getting some kids in there in your like mid 20s, let's say. So quite a
Yeah.
different lifestyle from the ones you've spoken about before, man. Like, have you seen that kind of stuff in your community around you as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say my community is also more traditional.
Mm,
So, especially with getting married young, that's still happening a lot around us. Getting your children young as well.
mm,
Not necessarily it's not necessarily guys or women who are totally committed to God. Yes, they would come to church now and then. Some maybe perhaps not as much, but
mm.
they did like grow up with a Christian perspective. I don't know
Yes.
how to call it. Like they're Christian, that's their belief. They believe in God, but they don't necessarily always go to church. They don't. It's
They
not
don't work in
that
the
big of a
in the
lifestyle
church. I see. I see.
in the church community. Yeah, or they believe in God, but they still like do worldly things. Go out
I see.
party all the
I
time.
see.
Yeah, but there's definitely also a group of young men that want to become pastors,
Mm,
and they also go to Bible schools, go and study to become a pastor or a dumini, as we'd call it. And yeah, then also after a while, you'll see them settling down with women, getting married as it's being promoted. So I'd say this is quite familiar to the traditional lifestyle that I referred to earlier, where
mm.
you get married young, you get children, you've settled in, and you're totally happy and fulfilled with that. But yeah, it's definitely an lifestyle that did and sometimes still does appeal to me,
Mm.
being brought up in this community, also in a Christian home. Marriage is definitely important. And if it's God's will, it's definitely something that I will get myself into, being married, having a wife, getting the children,
Miss
but
Hammond,
not
where's Mrs.
necessarily.
Hammond? Where is she, bro? Where is she?
Mrs. Lemon, bro. Somewhere there in the future, risky.
Come on.
But yeah, it's definitely something that yeah, that's good. And following God and totally committing to him,
Yeah,
that would be the ultimate way a Christian person can go.
yeah,
But then obviously not everyone is meant to just serve in church. You can fulfill out your God-given purpose in with the different talents you've got. Like for example,
I
for
agree,
you it
man.
would be in your IT company. You can just live a godly life and influence people there to sort of start asking questions of
Mm,
like, how do you live such a good life, like what do you do, and then you can tell them about God, and that's also a way of expanding the kingdom of God, and you can do it in
so good,
all
man.
sectors of life. We need Christian business people, we need Christian politicians. So yeah,
So good,
that's
man.
definitely
Now you've
what you can get
summarized it
into. But
beautifully there, man.
pretty well, yeah, just to get back to the point is, yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle that is all that I would recommend.
Lovely, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think for myself, I agree with what you say. I almost
Mm,
feel not the pressure, but like I said, there's a lot of people that were quite influential in my life that are like going down that path and just being super involved in church and leading and taking up positions of leadership and then
mm-hmm.
aiming to plant churches in the future. But like you say, I think it's something
Yes.
that you feel called to, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not God doesn't call everyone, to live that exact type of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Pursuing God in your own time is something that every Christian should be doing. But like you say, I think you can still, um, go into many other different industries, like you say, and have that influence, man. So love the way that you spoke about it, Deborah. And yeah, I think for me, it's something that I see around me, but it's not again, it's not the lifestyle that I'm necessarily pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
But elements of it for sure. In that you want to keep God at the center of what you do, man. That's what we always say.
Yeah, definitely. That's
Amen, bro.
that's the way to go as Christians. Yeah. So then
Give us
there's
another one
also
that you have there, bro.
another one, yes, that we can get into is this is like a total like party lifestyle, the opposite of what we were like
Yeah,
were speaking of earlier. So
polar
this is
opposite.
just polar opposite. This is being, yeah, a party guy or a party woman,
Hmm,
trying to go to different clubs every weekend, or you might just be going to
yeah,
a different club and you're just in enjoying that thing even as you're growing older. It's kind of like an escape out of reality just
big time.
to go and party. So yeah, tell me what your perspective is on this type of lifestyle, just the
Sure,
party
man.
lifestyle.
Yeah, again, these are all things that we see around us. So I've got friends, like I said, who are like aiming to be pastors and so on, but I've got good friends as well who definitely have been involved in that lifestyle as well. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think it almost goes in hand with perhaps like living in the city, being where all the goings on are going. It's almost like you're living for going out and that kind of stuff. And you're big into like
Yeah.
social events and so on. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think there's a lot to enjoy there. Living that sort of metropolitan lifestyle in the city, maybe staying in like a studio apartment, and then like Friday, Saturday nights, you're going out to the clubs, you're meeting different people. So
Yeah.
I think it's something that appeals to a lot of people our age, and I see a lot of people doing that. Um, I think again, like it's interesting how we've said this with a few things, but you just don't want to be that
Mm.
guy who's like, let's say like 38 or something, and he's still in the club going like, ooh, ooh, ooh. Like I think again, it's just
Between
like,
all these young people. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a lifestyle that you can lead for a while, and I'm sure you'll enjoy yourself. You'll meet lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this kind of lifestyle also comes, with hooking up all the time and that kind of stuff. So polar opposites
Mm.
from, I think relationships play such a big role in your lifestyle as well. So we've spoken about like the careers and the sort of areas that you stay in, but I think what we just spoke about is like pure monogamy, like in that you're aiming to settle down with one woman, like you're looking for long-term things.
Mm.
But what goes hand in hand with the lifestyle that we're speaking about now with partying is not really that. If you
Mm-mm.
if you're in like a super solid relationship, unless you guys are like both party animals, you won't be going out every weekend and getting drunk. Although I do have a friend who's in a long-term relationship and you know, also like still goes partying out quite a lot. So you can have that situation
Yeah,
where maybe both of you just love to party. So that can be a thing. And I think there's just quite a few downsides that come with that, bro. And it's often that when you go to these kind of like social events and you're always at bars and clubs and all this kind of stuff, alcohol, like, you're not, most people don't go there just to like dance and that kind of stuff. They usually
mm,
think, okay, let me get 3, 4 drinks and then I'll get a bit loose and I can start dancing. So one thing, the biggest downside that I actually see with this is the
it's
alcoholism that comes with
expensive.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, expensive, and you can actually form like a full-on alcohol addiction. These are the kind of people that turn into
definitely.
alcoholics. Like at
Mm,
some point in your life, it can happen to anyone if you consistently are drinking on a Friday, on a Saturday, maybe on a Thursday for some event. Eventually you're doing it every day. And it becomes a bit of
yeah.
an issue, man. So that's what I would look out for with this kind of thing.
Mm. No, definitely. And it's also not something that you can maintain into like growing older.
Mm,
You won't have this excess money to just spend on partying. I guess it depends on your priorities, but if you wanna get like a house, to like a property of your own and all these different things, you'll need to start buying groceries and you'll need to start being able to sustain yourself. Especially when you're off of the books of your parents, they don't
yeah,
supply you with money anymore. It's difficult to maintain this lifestyle. Like you say, you want drinks and you might even get into drugs and become a drug addict, which is also
it happens, bro.
a downside. It it can lead to so much negativity and just disastrous events, you know. So there's always like a positive that you can, well, not a positive, but like the good times that you can have
Mm,
partying. But there's definitely a downside to it, and not just becoming addicted to the alcohol. You can just become addicted to sort of this type of thing. So it would be like you wouldn't feel like you're having a normal week if you didn't go out and you didn't go out
mm,
and party. So it would become an addiction to just be out every Saturday, be out
yeah,
every Friday, sometimes Sundays as well. So it can it can definitely have a negative impact. And yeah, you wouldn't want to be 38, 40 years old. Sometimes you might even see these bikers, like that's the image that I get, that are also
yeah,
just like at the bars, like these
yeah,
gray women and men just also still drinking, partying. I don't think that's a sustainable lifestyle, and it wouldn't end up being as happy as it was initially.
amen, amen. Yeah, man. I mean, these are just our thoughts. I'm sure there's maybe some
Mm.
people watching this who are like, nah, that's exactly what I want to do. And yeah, again, we're not saying
Yeah.
that any of these are wrong necessarily, but we just
Mm.
having a conversation about the pros and cons maybe of both. Um,
Yes.
yeah, man. I think just to challenge you a bit, bro. I know we're gonna get onto the lifestyle that we are actually aiming, and it's funny because you and I are
Yeah.
always quite in sync, bro. So, I think we're aiming for a similar type of lifestyle, but to challenge a little bit on because I've noticed that we've given a few cons of all of them, but perhaps with the lifestyle that we
Mm.
just spoke about, the like pursuing God lifestyle, would you say that there are any cons to, or maybe not cons, but like downsides that come with that, perhaps?
Yeah, I think there definitely is. If you start to focus more on the lifestyle, you start to idolize the lifestyle, like the things and the activities around church, and you forget about your personal relationship with God. That
Mm,
also happens a lot sometimes, and it becomes the sort of thing where you want to live this good lifestyle and have this sort of image, because in church you also
true.
get a certain type of status. So
Mm,
this is where you'll try and live this perfect life lifestyle in public and in front of everyone, but you're not really being yourself at home. You're a totally different person, and you're always scared that the you know not all of us have a good side and a bad side, not necessarily like evil, but you know what I mean. Like, we're not
Yeah.
perfect, we have our faults,
No.
and you sort of live in this image that you just want to portray the good, and you're so scared of the bad coming out that it becomes this pressure that you always have, and it's also it
Sure.
can it can entrap you in sort of just wanting to be this good image and not
Yeah.
necessarily living out who you are.
Sure, bro. That's exactly it, man. And I think it's good
Yeah.
to even in the lifestyles that we are looking, I think people would be able to
Mm.
find, yeah, that you know, it's interesting. We reviewed that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, and kind of what
Yeah.
he speaks about there is like you just have to choose what struggle, or what are you going to give an F about, and we won't swear on the
Yes.
video for for the sake of the viewers. But yeah, man, like I think with every lifestyle that you pursue, there's going to be some difficulties that come with it. There's going to be some
Mm.
like amazing things that come with it. So yeah, this is just how it is, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. I think just before we get into what we want to do, I think the final one that we kind of thought about today, man, is the lifestyle of just lacking ambition, perhaps. And
Yeah.
I don't know how to present this in a way that isn't negative, but I think it would just be, there's and you see it with guys around you, is that they are just quite
Yeah.
happy, to they're quite happy to live at home with their parents for perhaps the majority of their 20s. They enjoy things like gaming, like you know, watching like anime, that kind of stuff. And we pull this up as an actual lifestyle because there's a lot of people who like genuinely lead this lifestyle for like a long time, like throughout their 20s and their 30s and their 40s. So this is something that
Mm.
people actually like tend to do with their lives. So yeah, man, what
Yeah.
would you characterize that as? And what do you think you could actually get some enjoyment out of that from? Like, why do you think people tend to sometimes do that? Um, I'll be keen to hear your thoughts, man.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's necessarily the term, but I've heard something along the lines of being like a baby man, or like a something like that. But it's basically what you see in movies where these guys are still staying with their moms, their fathers, perhaps sometimes, but usually it's like the dad has passed away and it's just the mom, like, that's a bit older. She's lived
She
the
takes
life,
care of them a
and then this
bit.
guy's, yeah, she takes care of them, and they kind of still try and boss the moms around, but they're staying in the basement. And yeah, usually it's tied to gaming, but it's not always that it's that, or it's tied to anime. It can be something different. But
Yeah.
yeah, they just like comfortable with staying in the basement, staying with their parents. They
Mm,
don't care about necessarily like finding a wife or a girlfriend, and they quite they stay at home. They never go out, not even for food or anything. They very antisocial.
mm.
So I
That's a
think
big thing.
this happens when you get too comfortable, and when you don't want to do uncomfortable things. So
Sure.
I think it's definitely a struggle to also be in this lifestyle. There might be guys that want to get out of it, but it's so difficult because you're like addicted to this comfort of
Mm,
knowing like your mom's gonna at home game. Like, it's totally indulging in instant gratification, I would say.
it's true. It's
Just
true.
always like distracting themselves with the games because they don't want to face reality. They don't want to start making a difference in their lives. Yeah, but this is just my opinion, and this is how
Yeah,
I
man.
see it. So I think the main reason sticking to this type of lifestyle would be the comfort. I don't know
True,
what
bro.
your view is on it.
Very true. And I think it's also people that lack social skills here. And
Hmm.
just like you say, I mean, being a social person, um, you get people who are introverted and like to stay at home, and that's fine. Um, but like you say, you know, meeting new people and like making friends and all that kind of stuff,
Mm.
and going outside to social events. Initially, even for everyone, it actually takes a little bit of discomfort, And like you say, I think
Mm.
it's
It
just
does.
people that, yeah, they don't, they're quite happy, with the few people that they have in their life, and they don't want to, you know, move on past that. And there is nothing wrong
Mm.
with that. But as long as you are still having ambition, and as long as you still treat people well, if you are the kind of person that can't
Yes.
hold a conversation for more than 20 seconds, then, there's definitely
Mm.
some things that you have to look at yourself. And yeah,
And
I
work
think
on.
that's the thing. And you can't, as much as we are moving into this digital world, I still feel like if your life is just all about, playing games and watching movies and series, you're not living, this is all just entertainment,
Mm.
you're basically like filling time. You're not like using time, I almost feel like
Using
it's
time.
just
Yeah.
yeah, you're not like using it to your advantage. You're not making the world better. You're just
Mm.
entertaining yourself. So I think it's a little bit of a selfish, and indulgent comfort like lifestyle, like you
Mm.
say. So yeah, like I think that one's quite difficult to present in a positive light. But we try to sort of, yeah.
Definitely.
But these are all things that you see around you, and as young men, you need to decide, what kind of person do you want to be. So maybe sometimes
Mm.
you think of yourself, oh, I'm aiming to be this guy, but maybe have a look at yourself and see what type of lifestyle am I leading right now. If I continue, some people always say like, oh, I'm gonna be that like hardworking, successful guy. But right now they're just partying, 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 and they're like, "Oh, I'll get to
Mm.
that later." But like, if you stay
Yeah.
in this lifestyle for too long, eventually you're just going to be that guy who parties. You're not going to be that successful guy.
Mm.
So you got to watch yourself, man.
Yes.
Um,
Definitely.
yeah, bro. What's uh, what's the final one that we wanted to discuss there?
Yeah, so I think this is something both of us would want to get into, and we see quite a few people are as this world is just becoming more and more crazy, in my opinion and in my
Sure.
perspective, are starting to become or wanting to lead a lifestyle of being, more off the grid, being more self-sufficient. We see with this ESCOM problem in South Africa, starting to get those solar panels to provide for your own electricity. And this is something that appeals to me a lot, is just like getting a nice piece of land, having like you've built your house, you've got your borehole that provides the water, you've got the solar panels that provides your electricity, just like
Yeah.
a very basic viewpoint. um and you've got, maybe a few cattle or sheep here and there that you can like slaughter to have your own meat, and then you've got your garden with your vegetables and with your fruits that you can eat. So it's basically not having to rely or be dependent on anyone or anything.
Mm,
Obviously, yes, you might still go out and get a bit of groceries here and there, but it's just to be, self-sustaining, being able to have your own electricity if, let's say, the government can't provide for it, having your own water. And just if like all falls to shambles, you can still provide for yourself and survive. It's kind of a lifestyle that's also really peaceful, being out um of the urban areas, being away from that, like out of the city, being more
yeah.
on the rural side of things, out there in nature, just yeah, sort of driving towards having a more peaceful lifestyle.
Music to my ears, bro. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
think
man.
I think what appeals to me, man. I mean, we've discussed all of these different things. I think what just appeals to me about this is, like you say, I think this kind of lifestyle, it's almost more describing just the place that you live, perhaps. But
Mm,
again, it is like you say. I mean, so the goal would then be to buy a piece of land that's maybe a little bit like um away from the city,
yeah, out
um
of town.
out of town. I mean, yeah, you can't these days. You can't buy big pieces of land like close to the city. It's going to
Mm-mm,
cost a lot, and those kind of land, those pieces of land usually want to be developed. So yeah, you're
mm-hmm,
living in a slightly more isolated area. Let's say you don't have houses all around you. I think, yeah, what really
mm,
appeals to me about this lifestyle, bro, is just the peace that comes with pursuing that kind of lifestyle, man. And yeah, I think you're gonna have to find a way, obviously, to make the money. So before you
Mm.
do this kind of thing, you have to work for a while. Maybe you will still live in the city, but once you've got enough to buy like a piece of land in a nice place that you would like to live, yeah, then you end up like and you also need the money to, like, let's say, build the greenhouse to grow the vegetables and then buy the
Yes.
cattle. So it's not something that you can do right off the bat unless you perhaps have like
Mm-mm.
parents who already are in agriculture and farming, or let's say, or maybe they have a piece of land. But yeah, I
Mm.
think what appeals to me is the peace that comes with it, and also just being in nature. I think oftentimes when I feel like I'm really happy is just when I've been spending lots of time in nature. Um,
True.
I I enjoy like the city, and I remember when I was young, I always thought like, oh, I want to move to New York City because New York City is just this like big name. But you realize,
Yeah.
if your view every day is just apartment blocks, I think for
Sh-
me, I would end up feeling like quite depressed. So
Depressed.
for me, yeah, I think that thing of just being in nature, leading a more simple lifestyle. So this
Mm.
kind of lifestyle also takes, like we said, a decent amount of capital to build up. So like we said, the success kind of just looks different in that you're not spending your money on a flashy car. You're probably buying like a four by
Yeah.
four that can like drive through the mud and the rain and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a different way of using your money to build up a life that makes you happy. And yeah, I think this
Yeah.
is the kind of thing that I do want to pursue. We both are like studying at the moment, and we've got our careers ahead of us. But
Mm.
what what's quite nice for myself, man, is that with IT and what I'm doing, and actually with a lot of jobs these days, you can work remotely. So you could
Mm.
actually live on a piece of land that's maybe a little bit further away, and you just connect to you do your work from home, which is something awesome. And then when you're done, you can go and like work on the garden, and and what also just appeals to me about this, bro, is like with a piece of land that you have, you can build like there's opportunity to do so many different projects. Like I said, like building a
Mm.
greenhouse, you could build like a little cottage for your parents to come and stay. So I think I'm just describing the kind of lifestyle that I look to build. And yeah, man, I think
Mm.
in due time, hopefully we can get there.
Definitely, man. Yeah, I know. I think it also just sounds good knowing that after you might have had like a stressful day at work in the city, you go home into nature, that sounds really cool to me. But like you say, it's something that takes time to build up, and you have to also, be patient with it. And at the end of the day, we've outlined all of these different lifestyles, but within your personal lifestyle, you might have a bit of different lifestyles with like going into your lifestyle, kind of like a mixed mash thing. Like it all balances out. There's identities of, the Christian lifestyle that we
Mm,
definitely have in our life. And then maybe the
yeah,
traveling as well. There's like
yeah,
bits and pieces of every
sure.
piece of it that we have within our lives.
Love it, bro. Why not take a little bit of the
Yeah.
best of both? I mean, yeah,
Yes,
life's
let's
always
go.
good when you have variety. So I love that, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation. Yeah, I mean, listening to it, I really enjoyed having this conversation with you, bro. I mean, I think gone on for quite a long time there, bro, speaking about each one.
Yeah, no,
But it's been an interesting topic,
definitely.
man. I love hearing your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, no, it was also good hearing your thoughts and, just always or just choosing to talk about the different lifestyles. It's good to have these conversations and, see where each of our minds are at. So
Mm,
yeah, everyone, if you've made it to the end, thanks for listening to this conversation. We're definitely keen and interested to hear your thoughts of, the type of lifestyle you'd want to pursue. So you can comment down below. Remember to like the video if you've enjoyed it, to share with someone who you think will like benefit from it, and then also to subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, that's it from us here at Better Than Yesterday. Much, much love. Cheers.